Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the On the Diamond and Into the Deep podcast. As always, I am your host, Mahal, and this is episode 81 of the podcast. Today is Friday, July 11th. Time of recording is 11:37. We're 2 days out from the 2025 MLB draft, and the Mariners are scuffling, to say the least. Now, it's only been 3 games, really, to say that, but even on the homestand, when they actually, record-wise, went pretty well. They swept the Pirates, didn't give up a single run in that series. They split a series with the Royals, I want to say. Yeah, the Royals. Split a series with the Royals. They swept the Pirates for a total of a 5-2 homestand, which is a good homestand by record. That said, they didn't play their best baseball really through any of it. They probably should have won 3 of 4 against the Royals easily. And even sweeping the Pirates, they didn't score a whole lot of runs against a not very good pitching staff. And you head into New York to the Bronx against a team that has really been struggling in the New York Yankees. They've been swept multiple times over the past 2 weeks by teams that are roughly around where the Mariners are, maybe slightly better, maybe slightly worse, including teams like the Toronto Blue Jays, the New York Mets, couple other teams as well. I think the Boston Red Sox even. And you head into that series and you have Will Warren starting game 1 for the Yankees. You have a rookie starting game 2 with I think it was his first major league start for the second game. And then you have Marcus Stroman going in game 3. And you have Logan Gilbert going in game 1 against Warren. Logan Evans in game 2. And you have Brian Wu in game 3. You look at that series, and you still look at that series, and you're like, you're set up to win that series pretty damn easily. You're set up to win game 1 and game 3 pretty easily. But that didn't happen, to say the least. And where do I want to start? Because game 1 and game 3 both really series of unfortunate events in some ways, especially game 3. And game 3 really is the worst loss of the season for sure. And maybe the worst loss for me, at least, since the ALDS. And that's the type of loss, that ALDS loss, where you remember exactly where you were when it happened. I remember where I was playing golf at Jefferson Park, on the short 9, on, I believe, hole 7? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? Hole 6? No, hole 7. 7, 8, yeah. Hole 7 of the short 9 at Jefferson. Remember being on the tee box, listening to the game in an AirPod. Mariners are up. Robbie Ray comes in. Yordan Alvarez steps to the plate. And you can remember the call. You remember what you were doing. You remember where you were. You remember where you're standing. You remember what happened after. I remember throwing my 7-iron. I remember sitting on the edge with my hand in my face, just confused. I remember hearing literal screams from around the golf course when it happened. And I remember driving home in shock. Just sad, knowing that was probably the end of the season. Listening to the post-game show, listening to podcasts, living in your own thoughts. That was the type of loss that ALDS loss was when Yordan hit that homer. Yesterday, not the same type of loss by any means. Because it wasn't the ALDS. But in a road trip when you head into the All-Star break after Sunday, when you're facing the New York Yankees, and then you head to Detroit against the Detroit Tigers, who are the best team in the American League, and maybe the best team in baseball. At least so far they have been. And they are a matchup that is really difficult for you due to all their very good left-handed hitters. And due to facing Tariq Skubal tonight, Friday. Yesterday's a game you need. And that's a series you need, because going in and getting swept by the New York Yankees before heading to Detroit, a series that you could very, very easily get swept in again. And then you are staring an 0-6 road trip down the barrel. That's a concern. That's a worry. That's a fear. And you head into the All-Star break on an all-time low. I mean, you think about 2022. Now, we always talk about the 2022 season because It's the one time the Mariners have made the postseason since 2001. The one time in my lifetime they've made the postseason. I remember all the moments during that season. I remember the Gino and Julio home runs against the Braves. I remember the Cal Raleigh trout busting home run. I remember where I was when Gino walked off the Blue Jays in the 12th inning, I want to say. I remember where I was when that win streak started, sitting in a hotel room in Palm Springs. I remember watching games when Julio would hit homers off the warehouse in Petco Park. Day games at Petco Park. Robbie Ray dressed in his 4th of July outfit with a tank top. You remember all those moments from that season. I remember all those moments from that season. I remember where I was, what I was doing, how was I listening, watching to the game. You remember those moments because those moments built up for that season. That's one of those seasons that makes you fall in love with this game that we are all in love with. It makes you remember why you love the game. And you wanted 2023 to be another one of those years. You wanted 2024 to then be one of those years. And you began this year wanting this again to be one of those years. But for me, instead of positive, good moments that I'm remembering, where there's walk-off home runs, big clutch home runs, what I'm remembering from this one is games like yesterday, those losses that add up and hurt. And when I look back at this season, at the end of the season, and now I'm saying this the day after, and I don't want to overreact and be emotional about it, but when you look at it, right now, the game that I'm going to look back at by the end of the season is last night's ball game. You have a no-hitter going through 7 innings. You're up 5-0 going into the bottom of the 8th inning at Yankee Stadium. 5-0. Brian Wu has a no-hitter going. Leadoff base hit. And it was like, oh, shoot. Umpire wasn't giving him any strikes on the edge of the zone. You didn't have a bullpen arm up, ready, whatever, getting warm. He gives up that base runner, Brash is up and ready. He faces one more hitter and then Brash is in. And I spent the night last night going through all the different scenarios of what could have gone differently in last night's ball game. And I'm forgetting to mention Monday's ball game, which the main thing with that game is that there was the rain delay. And I think that really it made it difficult for Walter, Logan Gilbert, and the Mariners seemed like they were about to score. And I think that sort of put an end to that. And I think the combination of those two things really just put that game in a tailspin. But back to Friday, or Thursday, I guess. I spent the night last night after the game. I spent a while thinking about scenarios on what went wrong, why it went wrong, what could have gone differently. And to me, it really was just a series of unfortunate things happening. And it was really a tale of the season. Because for me, everyone talks about the offense being a problem. And we'll talk about all the different facets of this team today. And we'll talk about how that plays into the trade deadline. And we'll talk more about what maybe the Mariners should do with the trade deadline. We talked about it last week, and if you haven't listened, I explained my thoughts on why I think the bullpen is really where the Mariners should attack if they're going to attack somewhere. But last night was really just a moment to know and show why maybe that is what they should do. And yes, it's a little bit different because you had a no-hitter going, you're up 5-0, you felt comfortable, but all of a sudden, a little bit less comfortable. And I think you look at it, and obviously what happened using hindsight is we know Munoz was tipping pitches, and we could see that throughout that inning. I didn't personally notice it, but lots of people noticed it all over. You could tell he didn't have command. It felt like he didn't have confidence. And let's say you had another really good reliever. Let's say you have acquired David Bednar from the Pirates. Let's say you have him already on this team. Or you have one more reliever. Maybe it's a Paul Sewald type. Just imagine having another high leverage reliever, and Munoz is tipping pitches there in that 9th inning. That gives you the ability to then go, oh, shoot, He's tipping his pitches. We need to pull him. And we have a reliever we trust and have confidence in going into that game, getting them out of that jam, and winning that ball game for you. That makes a difference. That's the bullpen. And yes, I don't think there's any one person to blame for last night because it really, truly was just a series of unfortunate events. And I believe that, and that's the truth. And I hate that, and it sucks. And it really, truly was the worst loss of the season for so many different reasons. But you have to remember that losses happen, and you cannot let this put you into a tailspin heading into the All-Star break and heading towards the deadline, because you have a difficult stretch. First thing out of the break, you have Houston Astros ball club that is rolling. A good Houston Astros ball club. As much as I hate to say it, it doesn't make sense to me, but you're going to have a Houston Astros ball club with Hunter Brown and Framber Valdez in that series. You are going to need your very best out of the gates from the break. And last night, it hurts because it's pushing you farther and farther away from where you want to be. You want to have good, positive moments to remember. But it wasn't one of those. It was a negative, frustrating moment. And that sucks, and that hurts. And it's hard to take positives out of that. And I don't know if there's anything I would have done differently, because the makeup of this team doesn't really allow for you to do anything differently. If you have Brasher Munoz struggle, you're a little bit fucked. And without either of them, this team is in the dumpster. And that's dangerous because bullpen arms get hurt. They do. And bullpen arms, they fluctuate how good they are from year to year, game to game, week to week, month to month. So I look to the second half of the season, and the bullpen's a big issue. And we've talked about it. We talked about it on last week's episode 80. And if you want to hear my entire take on that, go listen to that, because today is going to have other aspects of the deadline. We're going to talk statistics today. But go look at yesterday's ball game. And I don't want to put too much into it because, again, it really was just a series of unfortunate events. And tipping your pitches, that sucks. That's unfortunate. And it sucks that last night was the ball game that happened, because you didn't have another option there. And it's the worst loss for various reasons, and that sucks. But you have to move on. It's baseball. It's going to be interesting to see how the Mariners bounce back against Tariq Skubal tonight. That's the Cy Young right now in the American League. That is going to be the starter for the American League in the All-Star game. So it's a concern. It's a worry. It's scary. But if the Mariners can bounce back, if they can somehow sneak and win tonight, changes everything. Because you need a series win here in Detroit. You need some vibes. You need wins. You need to pick up ground. On the Astros, you need to maintain your spot in the wild card. You need to pick up every single ball game you can. And last night's an example of dropping one that you cannot drop. And when you drop games like that, you have to then go and steal one that you're not expected to win, that you can't win, that you're not supposed to win. Because that's how you make up for a loss like that. Go beat Tariq Skubal. Go do the unexpected. Go get a good start from all your guys. It's time for this team to do something. You need it. And maybe this year's not the year, and I think that's the conclusion people need to start coming to, because they have a lot of holes. And we're about to talk about that. You have so many holes with not that many teams selling that I don't know if it's going to be possible. There's multiple strategies you can take this deadline, and we'll talk about it. So keep listening to find out more about where I'm looking at this deadline, what I'm looking at, the strategies I maybe am taking. Because when I look at this deadline, there's not a whole lot available. There's not a lot of options. And I think you need to look at all the players available and what maybe you're going to be able to go get for a reasonable cost that is worth going and supplementing this year's team for. Because is this year's team good enough? Because I look at how they just faced the New York Yankees, a scuffling New York Yankees that is, yes, a good team, but a struggling one, a very much so struggling one. And you got dominated through 27 innings. Through 18, for sure, you were dominated, destroyed, crushed. Then you have 7.5 good innings, and then again, you lose it. And to me, I look at those matchups, and that's another concern. Is this team good enough to go win an AL pennant? Because I don't want to just go make the playoffs to make the playoffs when you're sacrificing future assets. If you're sacrificing minor assets in the future, sure, go do it. But I think it's going to cost a lot more than that. And that's the conclusion that I think I'm looking at and I'm coming to. Because you look at guys like Geno Suarez, Josh Naylor, Ryan O'Hearn, those are probably three of the best, if not the three best bats available at this deadline. And you think about that, these are all three rentals. Two of them can't hit left-handed pitching. One of them is 33-ish years old. You don't really want to extend that guy for what he's probably going to cost. And the trade cost is going to be huge just because of how many teams want a bat. There are enough teams in this looking for a bat that this cost is going to skyrocket. And you don't really have anything that you can sell, so it's not like you can really go and sell. I mean, unless someone wants Mitch Garver, but you're not going to get much of anything for Mitch Garver. Are you willing to go trade a Luis Castillo here at this deadline when there's not many starting pitchers available? Maybe you get a big-time offer from somebody. I think you have to listen at the very least. And look, I understand that Jerry DiPoto's probably on the hot seat. But that doesn't mean he should just act out of desperation. You got to be smart with your baseball ops. And I'm okay with when you look at it right now and you look at this offseason if he stays. And that's not going to be a popular opinion. And I get that. But look at what he was given this offseason. He had $15 million to spend. That can't even get you one of the type of bats that they need. Who was available? Who got traded this offseason? Who signed that was in their price range, in their budget, that was available to them? Who was available to them that really was going to improve this team? Nobody. There was nobody. And that's the truth. You would have had to be very creative, and we saw what being creative the year before did. Think about this team if they had Robbie Ray right now. It's a very different ball club, isn't it? It's a very, very different ball club if they had Robbie Ray with his 3.06 ERA or whatever it is. Very different. You shouldn't fear giving out these big-time contracts. But they don't have the budget to even try to do it. You don't have the budget to go give $20 million to anybody. You don't have the budget to go give $25 million to Pete Alonso. They're being handcuffed. And maybe that's why this deadline, instead of buying for this year, you need to start buying and getting some of those holes for the offseason filled. But are there guys available to do that? Who is available right now, bats-wise, that is going to be able to supplement you through the rest of this year and next year and maybe even the year beyond? But you need right now guys that are going to supplement you this year and probably next year. Because I don't think it's going to happen this year, and I don't think that should be an unpopular opinion, or maybe it's not an unpopular opinion. That shouldn't be a hot take. You look at this ball club's not good enough. They have too many holes. Too many holes. I went into this episode's planning, and I wanted to look at multiple things. I wanted to look at what they might be needing. I came to the conclusion that you need minimum 2 guys, and I don't think that's enough. So really, you need 3 guys. Now, what is that going to look like? That's a question. First and foremost, I think you need a high leverage reliever. And that is the area where maybe you could attack for this and next year. Now, all of this depends on cost, trade cost, whatever it is. But let me propose an idea for you. David Bednar of the Pittsburgh Pirates is available. This has been closer for the Pirates. He's been very, very good this year. Very good. Let's say that's costing you Ty Pete. Are you doing that? A year and a half of David Bednar to give you a big three of Brash, Bednar, and Munoz? I think I'm doing that. What if it's costing you more than that? What if it's Bednar for Pete and Locklear, Pete and Williamson? Are you doing that? Pete and Locklear, are you doing that? Are you doing it for Ford? Because that might be what it costs. I don't know if I'm doing that. Because I look at this team and I look at the potential guys that are able to come up next year. And I tweeted this. And if you haven't already, again, follow at Diamond and Deep on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. I tweeted a little thread on where I'm at with this deadline. And to me, in their top 10 prospects, there's nobody available at this deadline right now that I'm willing to give up those guys for. That is going to be, again, we talked about this last week. That's going to be Emerson, Felny, Farmelo, Montez, Arroyo, Senja, Sloan, Ford, Young, and I'm trying to think if there's someone else I'm forgetting. Might just be a top 9. And whoever they draft on Sunday. Let's throw whoever they draft on Sunday first also into that. Who are you willing to go get right now that is available? Who are you going and getting that you're willing to part with those guys? Because for me, it's nobody. I look at the people available, the players available. I look at the players available, and I look at where the Mariners are at, and I look at where they could be at next year, and it doesn't make any sense. They haven't had a position player, real stud prospect come up other than Cole Young just recently. They haven't had a top 100 hitting prospect come up since Julio? Is that right? That's crazy. It's been 2022, 2023, 2024, and most of 2025. That's 3.5 years. And you have 3, 4 potentially next year. 3 for sure. I'm talking about Michael Arroyo and Laz Montez, who I haven't talked about them at all, really. But good God, these two guys, what they are doing in Arkansas is unbelievable. Unbelievable. It's amazing. And for me, I'm not trading either of those guys. Value will be higher next year. You could potentially have them on your major league roster. You need bats. You cannot sign bats. This is a known thing. You can sign pitchers. So to me, I'm looking at it, and we talked about David Bednar, so let's throw that back out. Are you willing to trade a Harry Ford, who can be your backup catcher to DH next year for you? A potential impact bat for a reliever that you could instead go sign if you actually had money? Because for me, no. Because for me, why are you giving up potential future assets in an area that you need those assets? For an area where you can go and spend money on the guy because a pitcher will actually sign here. It is a game of chess, and you have to think about all the different potential factors. And for me, when I think about all these different factors, it doesn't make sense to buy heavy at this deadline. It doesn't, because this team isn't good enough. And you might be able to sneak into the playoffs anyway. And if they sneak in the playoffs, yes, stuff can happen. But I'm not going and buying rentals to try and sneak this team in the playoffs, because then what happens if you miss the playoffs? What happens if you get bounced in the wild card round? All of a sudden, you have whoever gone from your top 10. You have whoever gone for nothing. For an opportunity to show your fan base that maybe we can try in this season. Would you rather that? Or would you rather really be able to go after it next year? Because I think next year is when your window really, truly begins. and I'm rambling here. We got to get into some stats here. But there are problems with this team, and it's a lot of them. So what I did for prep is I looked at the offense versus different pitches because I wanted to see really where their holes were. And unsurprisingly, their biggest hole was against sliders. They're 24th in WRC plus against sliders with a WRC plus of 80, 25th in average, 27th in slug, 27th in OPS. In terms of StatCast type of stuff, 28th in barrel percentage, 12th in hard hit, 23rd in contact rate, and 28th in zone contact rate. That means on sliders in the zone, in the strike zone, they are 28th in making contact with that. That means a slider that is hung, you are the third worst team in baseball at hitting that. That's a problem for a team that wants to make the playoffs. That said, they're very good against sinkers. They're first in WRC plus. They're good against splitters. They're 9th. 6th against cutters. 11th versus changeup. 4th versus curveballs. They're about average against four seams, and I think that's another issue. When you're 15th against four seam fastballs, and that's one of the highest thrown pitches in baseball, and 24th against sliders, which is one of the other highest, that's going to be a problem for you because those are the two of the most thrown pitches in baseball. I don't have the exact stat for the percentage of all pitches thrown. But if I were to guess, four seam and slider are both top 3 at least. Might both be top 2. The only other one that I could see maybe being there is a sinker. But pretty much everyone throws a four seam and most guys throw a slider. If you can go get a guy at the deadline that can hit sliders, now we're going to be talking about the deadline in a way of maybe this is a route for you to go and attack and acquire guys. Can you acquire a guy that can go hit sliders and hit sliders in the zone? Go get a guy that is elite at hitting sliders that are in the zone while also hitting other stuff because you're just not going to throw them sliders. But it's going to matter because you're getting abused by pitchers that have good fastball and a good slider. You're getting abused by those guys. You're getting abused by a lot of guys, but you're getting abused by those guys first. In terms of overall offensive rankings, you're actually not bad. You're 5th in WRC plus right now, 14th in average, 11th in on base, 11th in slug, 14th in walk. They have the 11th highest strikeout rate, so that is not wonderful. 7th in home runs, 13th in run scores, 26th in doubles, 5th in stolen bases. They're getting on, they're stealing bases. 12th in OPS, 11th in ISO, 15th in batting average on balls in play. So they're actually not been bad offensively, and yes, they have major holes, and we'll talk about those holes. We'll talk about third base, first base, DH. They're 13th in third base, WRC plus, 15th in first base, 18th in designated hitter, 21st in second base. Now we're talking about Young, and he struggled more recently. But in terms of F4, you're 19th of first baseman, 14th of third baseman. Got to get those up. Those are two pretty large holes, especially first base. Because at least Ben Williamson, he's providing you with very elite defense there at third base. But first base, that bat, 15th. But overall, 19th. Not good enough. Not at all good enough. That's Donovan Solano. That's Rowdy Tellez. That's Luke Raley. But overall, really, I think the offense has been good enough as a whole. The problems for me are that your bullpen is 16th in whip, 21st in FIP, 18th in Ks per 9, 18th in walks per 9, and 18th in home runs per 9. Yes, they are 8th in bullpen ERA, but that doesn't really matter to me. The rest of those stats, those are all problems. You're walking guys, you're not striking out guys, you're giving up home runs, you're putting runners on base, runners are getting on. And really, you've been lucky. When you're 8th in ERA and 21st in FIP, you've been quite lucky, to say the least. And for me, if I'm going to look at 3 stats here, am I going to look at 1 from your offense, 1 from your bullpen, and 1 from your rotation? The fact that the Mariners are 16th in whip for the bullpen, because I think that is the most important bullpen. That and FIP are both really important. 16th in whip and 21st in FIP in the bullpen. Then you are 14th in ERA of starting pitchers, and 13th in FIP, and 17th in Ks per nine. And I know I'm saying more than one stat here, but the fact that you're 5th in WRC plus, let's just go one stat. 5th in WRC plus. You're 14th in ERA and 16th in bullpen whip. Where is the biggest problem? Your bullpen number 1, your rotation number 2, and really your offense number 3 as a whole. And part of that's because Cal Raleigh's playing like an MVP. And part of that's because your rotation has been hurt. And part of that's because your bullpen really only has 3 guys right now. And yes, I like Brazzardo and Vargas, but those are 6th, 7th guys out of the pen for me, not 4th and 5th. Look, the bullpen's a big problem. And the bullpen is an area you can target and go attack right now at this deadline for this year and next year. And for me, that might be something you have to do. It might be. So if I'm at this deadline and they're going and acquiring guys that are more than rentals, that are available this year and next year, that's when I'm going to get excited. But for me, you're going and acquiring rentals, I'm going to be very wary, and I'm going to wonder what that's costing. And we'll talk about it when we cross that bridge, if we cross that bridge. But I want you to think about all the different factors here. The future, the rest of the league, what the rest of this team looks like, how many holes they have to fill. Because really, like I said at the beginning of this, right now, you likely need a 5th starting pitcher. You definitely need at least 1 reliever. And you definitely need a first baseman or a third baseman. You need a corner infielder. This is minimum. You need a corner infielder and a guy that can pitch in the 8th inning for you as a setup guy and sometimes close games. And you're telling me that you're going to go get those as rentals? I'm not sure. Because there's not that many guys available. And again, we've crossed this bridge already today. But with the guys available, costs are going to be sky high. And this team isn't good enough to give sky high prices, to overpay at a sky high price right now. This team isn't good enough. Unless you're sky high pricing a lot of guys. But then, what does your farm system look like? What does your team look like? Because for me, I'm not sacrificing the future when this team, really their window right now, I think, is 2026 through 2030. 2026 through 2029. That's another 3-4 year window that starts next year. Laz Montes, Michael Arroyo, Harry Ford, Cole Emerson, all could be up next year. Definitely Ford, definitely Laz, definitely Arroyo. Those 3 definitely could be up next year and early next year, I think. Emerson could be up middle to end of next year, depending on when he gets to Arkansas and depending how he looks in Arkansas. That's 2 of your top 5. 3 of your top 10, and potentially 3 top 5, 4 top 10, including your number 1, available to join the team next year. Do not sacrifice that. Do not throw that away unless it's for the right guy that you can go and extend and have for multiple years, that's young, controllable, and is going to make a big impact to this ball club. And I don't think there's anyone available that really is that. Now, if a Matt Olson type comes available, then we'll have a different talk. But I don't think he will be. And we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Mariners need a series win here in Detroit. And that starts tonight against Tariq Skubal. It's going to be difficult. They've beaten him once this year, which means I don't have much faith in them doing it again. And they haven't been crazy good against lefties. So as you watch the rest of this weekend and as you go into the draft Sunday, and as you think about it over the All-Star break as we miss Mariners baseball, think about all the problems of this team. Think about the needs. Think about the cost. Think about next year. Think about 26, 27, 2028. Think about all that. And don't let your emotions get in the way of thinking about this in a smart way. Because for me, that's first and foremost. Think about this in a smart way, not emotionally. Thank you guys so much for listening. This has been episode 81 of the On the Diamond Into Deep podcast. I will be back after the draft. I'll probably be back Sunday night or Monday. maybe even Tuesday. I'll try to get one out early next week. We might wait until the home run derby's over to record, but we will get one out to talk draft, to talk All-Star Game, to talk home run derby, and potentially we'll need to talk more deadline. We probably will, depending on what the draft looks like, who they go with, and depending on how the home run derby goes and what there is to talk about and news-wise and how the weekend goes. We might even have some targets to talk about next week, whether that's going to be bullpen, bats, rotation. It might be one of each even. So stay tuned. We will be back next week. Again, if you haven't already, follow the social media, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, all at Diamond and Deep. As always, go Ners and peace.